So I was in LA, that was, and I started telling President in LA. And then Prabhupada came to LA, I don't know, maybe after Rath Yatra that year. That was 1974. So Prabhupada comes, and of course I'm the TP, so I get to go in the morning walks, I get to go in the garden and everything. So Prabhupada had just been there, just gotten there, and we were having one of those evening kind of things in the, the little garden back in LA. And there was quite a few devotees all sitting around, and I was Jayatirtha was by Prabhupada, and I just come in, and Jayatirtha goes, Prabhupada, I'd like to introduce you to our new temple president here in LA, Tulsidas. So Prabhupada looks at me and he goes, oh, I know Tulsidas. So my heart, I'm going, oh, great. Prabhupada knows me. Prabhupada really recognizes me. I was, this is happening in a nanosecond, but I'm really feeling, like really good. I know Tulsidas. And then he goes, and why did you leave Bombay? So I went from like this way up here to like, I just went crashing to the bottom, and my mind was just trying to find what am I going to say, and my heart was beating up, and I started to make some excuses. Well, I was having some trouble with the management, or I was doing this or that, and finally I just went. I looked at Prabhupada, straight in Prabhupada's eyes, and I said, Srila Prabhupada, I was in Maya. And Prabhupada said, yes. And then he went on to give this whole lecture about, how powerful Maya is and everything. But it was a highlight moment for me, that moment in the garden in LA.
And this was at the time when he was visiting Hawaii. And at that time, there were several disciples who were by nature, very intelligent and charismatic, and had misled some of the more simple folk, simple-minded devotees. And I was in a lot of anxiety about it, because I felt extremely protective of the devotees, having been the first devotee in Hawaii. They were like my children, sort of. So I was very protective, and I was very anxious about it. So I was explaining to Prabhupada how such and such, these people are, they're misleading him in this way and in that way, and changing the philosophy and so forth. And Prabhupada very calmly looked at me and said, the mouse respects the cat, and the cat respects the dog respects the wolf, and the wolf respects the tiger. But we see they are all animals. In other words, from his perspective, all of us, all of these people that he's having to deal with on this planet are really on the level of animals. And if we realize that, we won't get too puffed up. If we realize that we're really coming from very, very low-grade backgrounds, he's coming from Krishna Loka. There's no chance of our getting so puffed up that we think that we can outguess him, edit him, change his ideas about things, think we could do better. It's impossible. We can't. He can outguess. I saw so many instances of this. Unfortunately, one very close to home instance was my own husband, who I loved very much, Gaurasundar. He was brilliant. He was very educated. He was studying Sanskrit and Bengali, and he did the transliteration for Chaitanya Charitamrita, the first part of it. And he was a very nice devotee. He used to take Prabhupada on walks every day, and he did the massage every day. I give him all credit for all the wonderful service that he did. But later on he left, and Prabhupada made the comment to me, even though he knew I was quite attached, many times he said, Gaurasundar is suffering from too much intelligence. He has the disease of being too intelligent. He thinks he knows more than his guru. And this was Gaursundar's flaw. He was very, very brilliant in every respect. But as soon as a person thinks they know more than their guru, then the fall down begins.
Early, around 70, 72, I'd been preparing for sannyas for about, it was a little later than that. What was it? Anyway, it was early 70s. I'm not sure of the date, but I'd been preparing for sannyas, and Srila Prabhupada was, he was treating me very special. We were going on the morning walk. I got to go on all the morning walks, and he would give me special attention and talk to me. And I remember one day, as I was on a morning walk with him, and as I'm looking at him, his skin looked like silk. It was like he revealed an energy to me, but his skin went from being flesh to being just golden silk. It was very beautiful. And I got myself all prepared and, shaved up and fresh cloth. And I went to Shyam Sundar and I said, Shyam Sundar, I'd like to see Srila Prabhupada. And he said, well, why do you want to see Srila Prabhupada? And this is when Shyam Sundar had just been made GBC. So I said, well, I want to ask him for sannyas. And he said, well, Kula Shekhar, he said, you really think you want to take sannyas? And I said, yeah, I've been preparing for it for years, and I'm very ready. So Shyam Sundar said, well, do you ever think of marriage? I said, yeah, well, He said, do you ever think of sex? Do you ever think of marriage? You ever? I said, well, sometimes the thought crossed my mind. I said, but I don't pay any attention to it. So he said, well, look, Kula Shekhar, he said, maybe you should get married. I said, what? He said, yeah. He said, maybe you should get married. He said, look, this is a big decision. He said, this is for the rest of your life. He said, go away and think about it. He said, because if you ever think of sex, you shouldn't take sannyas. So I went away and thought about it that night, all night long. Didn't sleep much that night, I remember. And of course, trying to be truthful with myself, I thought, well, sometimes I do think of sex life, and it does cross my mind, and maybe I'm being just totally, false. I should probably get married. Well, then I started thinking, well, who do I want to marry? So I started thinking about all the different brahmacharinis and which one was the best one for me to marry. And anyway, I'd already gone through the complete ceremony, more or less. So I went back to Shyam Sundar the next morning and I said, Shyam Sundar, I said, I think you're right, probably. I think I should probably get married. He said, well, who would you want to marry? And I told him the name of the girl, and he said, oh, that's a good choice. Yeah, he said, you can go in and see Srila Prabhupada. He said, just knock on the door. So I said, great. So I knocked on the door, and I opened the door, came in, and Prabhupada was beaming at me, beaming. And I paid obeisances, and I got up and I sat there, and Prabhupada said, yes. I said, Srila Prabhupada, I'd like to get married. And he went, what? What? He said, who has done this to you? And I was devastated. He said, who has done this to you? And I said, well, Prabhupada, I went to see Shyam Sundar, and he went, Shyam Sundar! And he looked at Pradumna and he pointed, he said, Pradumna! He said, get Shyam Sundar in here immediately. Prabhupada was furious. And I sat there, I felt like a dog. I was looking at the floor and I was like devastated. So Shyam Sundar comes in and sits down. And Prabhupada said, who are you to tell my brahmachari to get married? Who are you? And Shamsun said, well, Prabhupada, he said he wanted to take sannyas. And I told him if he ever thinks of sex life, Prabhupada said, everyone with a material body thinks of sex life. He said, look at him. He's finished. And Prabhupada looked at me with such compassion. He said, look at him. He's finished. He said, you have no right to tell my brahmacharis to get married, ever. That was, I don't remember much after that.